What's up, guys? Matt Moda here with Crossing Broad, here to talk to you about the Eagles versus Giants Thursday night football game that we have. Week 6, Thursday night football, NFC East rivalry game between these two teams. I'm going to have 3 player props for you guys to lock in. I'll give you a lean on the spread as well, but I'm not going to make that an official play. We're coming off of a pretty good week last week. Unfortunately, fading the Eagles ended up working out in our favor. Had the Broncos +4, could have taken their money line. Also had the under in this game, which came through thanks to the Eagles not scoring that last touchdown. We did miss our player prop. To be honest with you, Courtland Sutton ended up having a much better game than I was expecting, which meant Troy Franklin did not have that good of a game. But 2-1 equals profit. We'll take that any day of the week. Before we get going with the 3 plays for this video, for this game, would appreciate it. Those of you watching, if you could like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff helps us out a ton. And then if you could head to BetMGM and sign up using the promo code CROSSING, get one of 2 sign-up offers depending on the location that you are in. Would appreciate that as well. And let's talk about it. So number 1, the first play, we're going to go Saquon Barkley, and we're going to take him to go over his rushing yardage prop. You know, there's really no argument to be made other than it's been a disappointing start to the year for Saquon Barkley, disappointing start to the year for the Eagles offense, which I know they have a new offensive coordinator, but Kevin Patullo's been there since 2021. Everybody on the team is the same except for the right guard. They shouldn't be having the types of issues that they are, but they are, and you just got to deal with what's the reality of the situation. Saquon Barkley has only hit 80 yards one time this year, has only gone, that was the only game in which he's even gone over 60 yards. Now, the low light of the season for Saquon Barkley was last week. He only had 30 yards in that game. And even more importantly, he only had 6 rushing attempts. Now, the Eagles, a very, very reactive team. One could say overreactive type of team, but they're going to see that Barkley only had 6 carries last game. And I think that's going to be an overcorrection. And I think they're going to give the ball to Saquon Barkley a ton in this next game against the Giants. Luckily, it is a fantastic matchup for them to do so. The Giants' run defense has been among the worst in the entire NFL. It's not really what you would expect because they have such high and really important big names on the defensive line. You know, the rookie Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. They have a lot of talent on the defensive line, but they cannot stop the run. They've given up the 8th most rushing yards per game, specifically to running backs. Now, that was the 2nd most heading in to week 5. The Saints didn't have a bad game on the ground, but they didn't completely annihilate the Giants, drop them from 2nd most to 8th most. But they've allowed the 2nd most yards per attempt. So in terms of just yards per attempt to the running back, Giants have allowed the 2nd most. To go even deeper than that and to really show you how bad this run defense has been, they've allowed the 7th most adjusted yards before contact. That really just measures how much push the offensive line gets against the Giants' defensive line. How far is the running back able to go before they are contacted? Again, the Giants have allowed the 7th most. The Giants have also allowed the 2nd most yards after contact per attempt. So that's a terrible combination. Yards before contact, yards after contact. That's it. There's literally only those 2 things. And the Giants are bottom 2 in terms of yards after contact. That's terrible. And you look at the Eagles' running game. You know, why have they struggled so much compared to last year? Saquon Barkley seems to be pressing a little bit. Some of it's bad luck where he just slips when it looks like he has a hole. Some of it's the offensive line's getting beat. Some of it's the the tight ends have been beat. It's not like this one thing that the Eagles can just solve, but the metrics have the Eagles as like an average rushing team, an average offensive line, as opposed to below average. Now, they don't have the best offensive line in football like they did last year. They're not opening these crazy gaps for Saquon Barkley like they did last year, but against the Giants, average offensive line, that should play for Saquon Barkley. To give you context, 7 of 9 running backs that have had a tracked over-under against the Giants, 7 of 9 have hit their over. The only ones that didn't was Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler, 2 running backs that didn't receive the majority of the carries. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is. Every running back that has been the starter or received the majority of carries, they've gone over against the Giants. I think that is going to be Saquon Barkley on Thursday night. I also think A.J. Brown is going to have a big game as well. So I'm taking him over his receiving yardage prop. I kind of think that we're going to have a little bit of a throwback to 2024 with this Eagles offense, which A.J. Brown, who had a good year when he was healthier, and Saquon Barkley, who had one of the best years in running back history, I think we're going to see both of them have a good game. And obviously part of this disappointing start for the Eagles offense has come with their passing game and A.J. Brown, where they just look like they've never been coached before. A.J. Brown's only gone over this number one time this year. Back in week 3, he had 109 receiving yards in that game. All that came in the second half. The other 4 games that A.J. Brown has played, 8 receiving yards, 27, 7, and 43. So twice he hasn't even reached 10. 3 times he hasn't even reached 30. That is despicable. Now, the 43-yard game he had last week, that obviously wasn't good. It would have been a heck of a lot better if he just ran his route, which everybody knows the play I'm talking about. He was a deep, long developing route where A.J. Brown kind of stopped his route short, didn't think the ball was coming to him. A.J. Brown threw it. Jalen Hurts threw it to A.J. Brown, who was wide open, but the ball ended up being overthrown because A.J. Brown stopped his route. He catches that. He keeps going. That's a touchdown. The Eagles probably win. There's none of this chatter, but he did end his route short, and there's a lot of examples of stuff like that happening. That's going to get cleaned up now that it's happened in such a high-profile way. And the Giants, as bad as their run defense is, guess what? They're also really bad defending the pass as well. Not a great combination for a defense when they're bad against the ground and against the pass, but hey, that's perfect for an Eagles team that really needs to get right on offense. Through week 5, so every single game so far, the Giants have allowed the second most receiving yards per game, specifically to wide receivers, on the second most receptions as well. They've allowed 10 of 15, so 15 receivers with a tracked over-under. 10 of them have hit their receiving prop over, including some monster performances. Raheem Shaheed, 114 yards last week against the Giants. In that same game, Chris Olave went over his receiving yardage prop. The week before then, the best game the Giants have played all year, both Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey went under, but Quentin Johnson went over. The week before that, they allowed a ton of receiving yards per game to the Chiefs. Both Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster went over their receiving yardage prop. And then the week before that, against the Cowboys, they got lit up by Dak Prescott. So yeah, not a good passing defense, not a good running defense. So yeah, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, I think they're both going to have good games. Let's hope that does come through. And then our third and final play, we're going to head over to the Giants side. Now, it's a weird game for the Giants. They're getting Tyrone Tracy back. Obviously, wide receiver Malik Neighbors is going to be out for this week and the rest of the year. Also have a hamstring injury to Darius Slayton, who's going to be out for this game. So a lot of moving parts with the Giants offense. What I think is going to be the same of what we've seen. Jaxson Dart continuing to scramble. So I'm taking him to go over his rushing yardage prop on this one. Again, lock all these in at BetMGM. Dart's made 2 starts in his NFL career. 2. That's the only data sample size that we have to go off of. He's rushed for 50 plus yards in both of those starts. In his first start, I was going to say week 1, but in his first start, 54 yards on 10 attempts. That was against the Chargers. Last week against the Saints, 55 yards on 7 attempts. Yet, we're still getting a line that's priced at 34.5, which is a number that I really think is still too low that I like to go over. So his scramble rate, like what percentage of plays does he scramble? Second highest of all qualified quarterbacks currently in the, or this year, I should say, this year in the year 2025, every qualified quarterback, he scrambled the second highest percentage of his plays. The only one who's ahead of him is Tyrod Taylor, who A, has made 1 start, and B, that's kind of the way that Tyrod Taylor plays. His scramble rate this year is 13.16%. That would have led the entire NFL last year. Jaden Daniels had the highest scramble rate last year. His was at 12%. I've already mentioned the fact that the Giants are going to be down 2 receivers in this game. Not really sure what they're going to get going in the passing game. I also do think that they're going to be losing a lot of this game, so I think they're going to have to pass, which means that Dart's going to have to rely on his legs. This is an Eagles defense that's been mostly below average against the run. You know, they've played some statue quarterbacks like Dak and Matthew Stafford. The only 3 quarterbacks that they've played that actually run, one of those 3 went under. Baker Mayfield 2 weeks ago went under against the Eagles, but Bo Nix went over last week. Patrick Mahomes in week 2, 66 rushing yards. His over-under was only 24.5. So 3 player props for you guys to lock in. Saquon Barkley over rushing, his rushing prop. A.J. Brown over his receiving prop, and Jaxson Dart continuing to scramble, going over his rushing prop. And I mentioned I would give you my lean in terms of the main line. It's the Eagles covering the spread. I really think that this is a get-right game for the Eagles. I think the Giants are just dead in the water. You know, they won their first game in Jaxson Dart's first start. That was not completely unexpected because, you know, they get the bump of the new starting quarterback, but Malik Neighbors goes down, and they got up to a big lead against the Saints last week and blew it. I just think this Giants team doesn't have much going for them. Obviously, we know how bad they are defensively. Offensively, it's hard to imagine them having that great of a game. So yeah, I like the Eagles to cover the spread. Won't track that, whether that hits or not, just to give you guys a lean there. But that's what we got. Appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe. Go to BetMGM, sign up using the promo code CROSSING, and have a good one. Must be 21 or older in participating states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See terms and conditions in the description of the video.